Let's start our series on AWK with an example on using AWK. So on the right hand side, we have this file. It is input.ldef, and we will think of that file as our database. And our goal is to find the UID of the entry that has the given name Cutler. So the output that we expect is just a single word, like we see here, a single line that contains the J Beckett, which is the UID of that user. And I can start typing the AWK command in a terminal. However, I prefer to write the AWK commands in a file first because that makes the editing a lot easier. So I'll type my command here in this file and then I'll execute that file. I'll start by typing AWK and then I will do 2 single quotes to encapsulate my script. I'll write it later and I'll specify the input file. So we want to use input.ldef. Now inside the single quotes, we will write a very simple AWK script, which is print the entire line. And to refer to the entire line, we say $0, and then we close our block of code. So now we are not telling AWK which line it should execute this block of code on. And so AWK will execute that on every line of code. And this means we expect the output to be identical to the input. So let's execute that and see what happens. Okay, that's what we expect. The output is identical to the input, but that's not what we want, right? We want J Beckett. So as a step closer, instead of printing every line, instead of executing this block of code and for every line, we just want to execute it for the lines that start with UID colon. And to do that, I will prefix that block of code with a pattern or a regular expression. And we encapsulate that in 2 forward slashes. And I'll type here the regular expression, which is UID colon space and $sign. No need for, we should not add the $sign here. And now this block of code will work only for the lines that start with UID colon. So if we execute our script now, we are getting a step closer towards our output because we are printing the correct output, but we are still printing the incorrect output as well. First of all, we don't want the keys. We don't want the word UID colon, and also we don't want those. So let's start by addressing the first issue that we are seeing here, the keys, and we don't want that. We just want the second word in the line. So I'll go to my script again, and instead of printing the entire line, I'll print the second word by replacing this 0 with a 2. Okay, so let's run our script. Okay, perfect. Now we don't have the UID. And the next step is to think of a way to eliminate these values that we don't want to see here. And to do that, we are going to take a look at what the input looks like. So here we see a UID and then we print it. It's just as simple as that. That's what we are doing right now. And this is not enough because when we encounter a UID, we don't know what the given name will be because AWK works on a line by line. So instead of printing the value immediately, we'll just store it in a variable. And then if it turns out later that we want this value, then we can print it. So instead of printing, I'll just store it in a variable called UID. And to make the script a little more readable, I'll split it into 2 lines here because we will add another block of code. Okay, now if we execute it as it is, we don't expect to see any output because there's no print statements. We just store something in a variable, but we never print anything. Okay, so now we executed it and there is no output. Okay, now what we want to do next is that if we see this line, we see that the given name is equal to Cutler, that's when we want to print the UID. All right, so we'll add this pattern. We will say when the line starts with given name, and then there's a colon, then there's Cutler, and then it's the end of the line. Then that's when we want to execute this block of code, which is to print the UID. So if I execute this now, then we see that we have finally got our output, which is J Beckett. So in summary, this script works over the input line by line. When it sees a UID, it stores it in a variable called UID. And when it sees that the given name is Cutler, that's when it prints the ID. And although we have reached the output that we want, there is actually an issue with our script, and it is that it relies on the order of these parameters, of these key value pairs, because if we get the UID after the given name, then we will not be producing the correct output. Or if there are some blocks that do not have both values, for example, one block has the UID but doesn't have the given name, and then the next block has the given name but doesn't have the UID, we are not going to produce the correct output, and that's what we'll be addressing in the next video. Thanks for watching.